So I'd like to bring up Jody Holtzman, who's the SVP of Market Innovation at AARP, who will talk about exploring the new frontiers in healthcare. This is helping people 50 years old and above living better lives and helping them to impact the world. And with everything that's going on with AI, genomics, biohacking, longevity research, there's a lot going on in that space. So with that, I'd like to introduce Jody.
So thanks for the opportunity to speak with you today. You know, in this country alone, there's about 110 million people who are over 50 years of age. But it's only in Washington that addressing the needs of that number of people is called an unaffordable cost and financial burden. In DC, it's really fascinating. You know, when you pull back all of the niceties on both sides of the aisle, the essence of the message is this: we can't afford all these old people. And you say to them, well, where's your evidence for that? And they say, well, look at Social Security, look at Medicare, they're unsustainable. Well, the aha moment was that I heard a bait and switch. And the bait and switch was they're making an economic claim, can't afford all these old people as a society, but the evidence was how two programs are designed. Not exactly economic evidence to support an economic claim. So my view is, and AARP's view, is that in the private sector and for entrepreneurs, it's really about opportunity and about looking at this challenge, because it is one, through the lens of opportunity. And need I tell you that it's a large opportunity. When you look at the economic activity that's generated solely by the consumer spending of people over 50 in the United States, it's $7.6 trillion. And if there was a standalone economy driven by that consumer spending, called the longevity economy, the GDP would be $7.6 trillion, generating almost 90 million jobs, $1.8 trillion in federal, state, and local taxes, et cetera, et cetera. So what does this have to do with healthcare and digital health and the opportunity there? So first of all, I don't know if you're aware of this, there's a little sea change going on when it comes to healthcare. There's this law called the Affordable Care Act. I don't know if you've heard of it. Which, at least as of today, is still the law. And it has done a lot to both respond to changes that were already happening in the market and at the same time to spur other changes. One of the biggest changes is the shift from volume to value in how healthcare is reimbursed. But part of that also is a focus on keeping people out of the hospital, preventive care, moving from a sick care system to a health care system. And there are several opportunities. This is from a study that you can download that we do called Health Innovation Frontiers. We've updated it now 3 times. And what the interesting thing here is that when you look at each of these, there's only a couple of them that you would say are explicitly focused on older people, like smart aging. But what about diet and nutrition, physical fitness, behavioral health, social engagement? These are things that are equally relevant across the age continuum. And so the challenge to entrepreneurs and industry is to not create, through design and other mechanisms, an artificial barrier to penetrating the market across the age continuum. So if you really want to think about how do I max out the opportunity, it's to think about age and all of the physical capabilities and issues that come with age and build that into the front end of design. And here too, it's a pretty sizable opportunity. So when you look at those 9 different categories, over 5 years, the upside revenue potential, by our forecast, is about $34 billion. Now that is on top of an existing revenue of about 75 billion. So over $100 billion generally in this space. So what kind of advice can we share with you? So first is to really be ready for this coming turnaround of this shift from volume to value, from sick care to health care. And if I were to, prognosticate, something I'm every now and then doing, I would say that despite the change in the White House going forward, that there are certain elements here that are going to keep happening, right? This shift, I believe, is at its essence going to stay regardless of what happens with the future of ACA. And there's plenty of economic activity going on to the tune of $4 to $5 billion, depending on whose numbers you look at, of venture investment in digital health broadly. The trust gap. One of the problems is that as you move from this institutional focus to really a consumer and patient-centric focus, there are no real trusted brands out there. So an opportunity is to figure out how you build that brand. Now, for older people, the brand is my doctor, right? When you go to my parents and if you ask why did you take that, they don't give you a scientific or a medical explanation. They say, because my doctor told me to. And so going down a stretch to my generation, to baby boomers, we're not taking that. We're not doing these things just because the doctor says so. We want to understand why, and we do want a trusted brand that's helping us get through this. Focus on the caregiver. There are over 40 million unpaid caregivers in the United States. There's a company up in Massachusetts that actually works with state Medicaid agency to pay previously unpaid family caregivers. Now, you would think intuitively, spend more money, raises the cost of the system. Nope. Saved Medicaid in Massachusetts millions of dollars. Why? Because it kept people out of the hospital. There's a problem, though. As I said, there's 40 million caregivers. There's about 2.5 million paid caregivers. By 2020, there's only going to be about 50 million of them. But also by 2020, it's going to be about 117 million people in need of caregiving. So there's opportunity there for solutions. One of the fascinating things happening right now in the Valley is you're just now starting to see people come from the tech industry into healthcare. But there are some issues that you have to really think about. Everybody familiar with MVP? We're not talking about sports, we're talking about minimally viable products. In healthcare, a minimally viable product can kill you. It takes on a whole new meaning, something that has to be considered. Defend and extend. Another fascinating thing in healthcare is these players who you never would have associated with healthcare are starting to enter the system. Angie's List, Rankin Docs, Yelp, same deal, Uber, Lyft. I mean, it's just bizarre. Google, Apple, Samsung. I mean, players that just traditionally were not in this space. Spanning the silos. There is no reason at this point in time technologically for devices to not be interoperable. This is a business decision. And you have to figure out not just what is the business model for your investors that justifies creating interoperability, but know this, your customers, patients, they demand it. And right now, one of the biggest challenges facing consumer adoption is that the user experience sucks. So this is about technology adapting to the lives of people, not people adapting to technology. Consolidation, we see it everywhere. Companies like Lively bought by companies like GreatCall, making innovations affordable. There's a huge population on fixed income There is a bottom of the pyramid strategy here that can glean lots of positive outcomes. Turning data into actionable knowledge. You know, the government under Todd Park did a great job making data available, but the private sector is yet to really start to access it. Making innovations usable, design, still a major challenge. Sensors, they're getting cheaper, they're ubiquitous, they're everywhere. It's behavior, not biometrics. Why is it that a company like Omada Health can finally get reimbursement from CMS? Because they actually have the data and they can actually sustain behavioral change over time. Tackle direct-to-consumer. Any VC will tell you direct-to-consumer, stay away from it. The problem is that that's also where the biggest need and the biggest opportunity is. Again, for social innovators, for social entrepreneurs, huge opportunity. And change the conversation. It's not about aging in place. It's about independent living. It's not about dealing with frailty. It's about dealing with empowerment and opportunity. My parents are 86 and 89. They just got back from a two-month trip to Europe and Israel. We were scared shitless. Just, you know, are you nuts? And they were fine. People want discovery. People want new experiences, regardless of age. So I have just one question for all of you. What's your 50-plus strategy? Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. So, very powerful. And I loved what he talked about in terms of the tried and true models of entrepreneurship and the challenges or how we need to change or adjust them in order to make them work in the healthcare environment. But I like the idea of disruption from outside, leveraging everything that's going on, and is particularly taking big data and moving it into action, as well as what the user experience is and to what end at the end of the day, and reframing the dialogue. I also need to think about what my plus 50 strategy is here, since I am over that threshold. I am now, I guess, potentially an AARP member.